Well, let's delve into details of these stories and analyze them further with Charles Fakroha, iBrandTV senior analyst. Thank you for joining us, Charles.
Thank you very much.
And compliments of the season.
Yes, I wish you this.
How are you preparing for Christmas?
Yes, we've always prepared for Christmas, on a daily basis, looking at the essence of Christmas itself. But before we forget, let's just try and acknowledge some persons who will making the Christmas possible for all of us, but they themselves will not be with their families. I guess you are working tomorrow now. You are working on Christmas Day.
Well, so some of us are on essential service,
exactly.
And some people would have to, of course, be at work while others are at home.
And so we need to appreciate them.
We would get their company, of course,
yes.
as we keep them company as well.
Especially the law enforcement agencies, some of them who currently on that Christmas Day will still be in the northeast, trying to make that, ensuring that we have peace in the country. Some in the northwest, dealing with bandits. And of course, some of those highway policemen who will be manning the highways while other people are celebrating Christmas with their family. So we'll also be celebrating with them. Of course, myself and you will be on the studio. And yes, we must appreciate those who are essential services because they are doing it for other people to have a very peaceful and memorable celebration. Yes.
Straight to the stories. Let's begin with the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, going to the Senate to defend the Finance Bill 2022. And of course, she's talked about the fact that she highlighted the key provisions in the Finance Act 2022 to include the change of the name of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, to Nigeria Revenue Service. What are your thoughts?
Well, the finance bill, as we have seen it, to be passed into an act by the National Assembly, is a welcome development, and I must give kudos to the National Assembly and, of course, the Minister for Finance and all those involved in that process. It's quite a very tedious job. Yes, changing the name, well, for me, I don't really see what that will, except if we are going to be saying that will improve on their efficiency, that will improve on their transparency, that will also improve on the way and manner in which they're able to understand and know those who are supposed to be in that tax net, because we need to increase the number of Nigerians who are eligible for paying tax. Yes, we need to do that, and at the same time, we need to also know the SMEs that are supposed to be paying tax, not overtaxing them, but they are paying the tax they are supposed to pay, and more of tax education, because you find that some of these SMEs are not even aware that it is their duty, a civil responsibility to pay tax. And what some of the tax officials do, dubious one, they just come and tell them you have defaulted, this is okay, this is for government, pay us this, and you see that SME owner will not have any trust in government when it comes to tax payment. So the finance bill, whether they are changing the name to Nigeria Revenue Service, should begin to look at all that. But I know that there's another provision in that bill that says that once you have workers and you pay them more than 30,000 naira, then of course you are expected to deduct the personal income tax.
There are a lot of issues, of course, in this tax payment. For instance, there's the issue of those who are paying. Are they paying enough? Are they paying what they should be paying? There's also the issue of those who are deducting from their staff who are not remitting to the appropriate quarters. A lot of criminal activities are still embroiled in this tax issue.
You have come to my point. That's what I'm saying. The change of this name now from Federal Inland Revenue Service to Nigeria Revenue Service, it will improve their operation, because
would it just a change?
I'm just trying to say, because it's criminal.
You're hoping that it would.
That is part of it, because it is criminal if you have an organization, you deduct pay from your staff and you don't remit to the tax authority. It's a criminal offense, and of course it's a financial crime, and I will employ the EFCC and of course the ICPC to go into action and begin to look at those areas and see how, because at this time of our development we need revenue from any source. And payment of tax is a huge source of revenue for the government to finance even this budget. At the same time, other developmental programs. So we need the Nigerian Revenue Service now? We need them to improve in terms of arresting defaulters. But at the same time, before I land, it is appropriate that people pay their appropriate tax. And the only way people will know is by these tax officials doing enlightenment campaign. The woman who has an hairdressing salon has 4-5 staff. What is the tax she's supposed to pay? This revenue.
But is it a case of these people not knowing, or the fact that there's no one checking, there's no one prosecuting, nobody is being brought to book?
Okay, those who are not paid, yes, those who are not paid.
Because some people, you should know how much tax you should be paying. So if you're not paying the amount of tax that you're supposed to be paying, then something is wrong. It's either because you're not being asked, questions are not being asked, or because no one is being prosecuted, and you know that there are no consequences.
Exactly. So and that's why we are saying the revenue agency now, which is going to be the Nigerian Revenue Service. They need to do a lot of light. You cannot rule out ignorance. Yes, you cannot rule out ignorance that I'm
just saying that might be a very minute part of the.
That's it. But at the same time, there are those who know, and of course, like you have said, they have just refused to pay because nobody has come to, check them. So,
it's considered to be passed next week, and we know that the budget is still going through a lot of adjustments, especially as President Muhammadu Buhari has now brought a supplementary budget of over 800 billion naira to the Senate for passage.
Yes. Well, that supplementary budget, is for, let me say, the current budget we are running. The one they want to pass is for next year. Yeah, so, but the way government works is for any spending.
The supplementary budget is for 2023.
No, it's not for 2023.
It's for this.
It's for this current budget we are running. Yes.
After the year is almost over.
But we still have some days.
Really?
Yes.
And you need 800 and something.
Yes, supplementary
for infrastructure.
Yes, that has been damaged by the flood. That's what the government said.
Hold on.
Road infrastructure.
What infrastructure are you building within the few 7 days or so?
If you watch, the president said, or what he sent to the National Assembly was to road infrastructure that were destroyed by the flood. That is what that amount of money is meant to take care of. And of course, maybe to support some of those persons who suffered so much as a result of the environmental issue. That is that flood.
I think it was majorly for capital, actually, especially for infrastructure.
Exactly.
But if you look at the fact that every budget has a provision for maintenance of this infrastructure, are you saying that that provision is not enough to take care of those roads?
Probably it's not, because if you see the devastation the flood has caused to some of, you can see a whole road being cut off, bridges, destroyed because of the flood. So yes, let's
so you don't smell any rat?
No, I don't smell any rat. I don't smell any rat.
Let's move on to the minimum wage issue. Of course, the federal government has now announced that the implementation of the national minimum wage was critical to national development. We've been talking about this for eons, and I know that the 30,000 naira minimum wage, which of course Labour has even been talking about the fact that they need to increase it because of the current economic realities. While we're still discussing the fact that some people are not even implementing the 30,000 naira.
Yes, when Labour said this is what was required, it was brought down, I think about 50-something thousand, was brought down to 30,000 naira. And some state governments still said they cannot afford to pay. But it's an act already. That means it's a law. So if I work for a state government and they don't pay me up to 30,000 naira, that means that state government is in breach of that law and it's a criminal offense. The same also applies to some private organization. If you have staff and you pay them below 30,000 naira, of course, it's also a criminal offense. And that is why the current Minister of Labor and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngigi, is saying they want to begin to implement, they want to monitor and see those government agencies or private organizations that are not complying with the provision of that minimum wage act.
But apparently, you cannot force state governments, especially those who have said from the onset that they would not be able to afford this. So is the act strong enough to impose this on them?
At least you don't just wake up one day and say this bill is an act. A lot of deliberations. And if those state governments have their objection, then of course they will have done that, even going to the National Assembly, because there was a public hearing. They will have made all their presentations and say, no, we don't want this thing, we cannot. This is so getting to this level now, and it's already an act, then I think it is too late. Yeah, so they just have to comply.
Okay, we'll see how that goes, because we know that as we speak, a lot of states are even owing. Even states that are not paying up to 30,000 naira are owing. How much more when you now want to impose the 30,000 naira minimum wage on them?
Well, I don't want to be hard on the politicians. A particular state executive, CEO of a state, is he also owing himself salary if he's owing his workers? Or yes, if he's owing his workers, is he also owing himself? Is he owing his special advisor on certain issues? So we want to know if he's owing, then we'll know that yes, he's also owing himself salary. Then we'll say, okay, actually the state does not really have the resource or the resources to begin to pay or implement this minimum wage act. But it's too late for them. They just have to comply. Yes.
Well, the 2023 budget is still, of course, on the front burner. That's talking about the fact that the National Assembly is saying that there are errors and that it was delayed. So they are talking about a lot of skirmishes as to the delay in the passage of this budget. Unlike the one we saw last year, it was passed. Yes. By now, it was already passed.
Yes, that's true. Well, again, I would want to say National Assembly kudos, because that is the highest lawmaking body in the country, and for the members that's both committees in both houses, the Senate and the House of Rep, harmonizing and going through, looking at the budget and looking at those details, item by item. We must give them kudos for that. And they were the ones that even had to identify some of these, what we call irreconcilable figures. And the other saying, no, with all these figures that are not tallying up, we can't pass. And besides, the executive even brought it late, so they don't have enough time to deliberate. And I say, no, we're not going to pass it. Keep it. Next week we are coming. So I must give them kudos, because a budget of any country is a working document for that country. It's a plan for your next 1 year, and it has to be very critical. The details must be clear. What is going for this must be clear. Where the finances are coming from must be clear, so that it will enable the government do some of those things on a yearly basis. So if it is just hazardly done, it's going to even affect implementation. So, and that is why we have voted these wise men, both are the distinguished senators and the honorables. That's why me and you have voted them in to check what the executive has presented to them.
But we've heard of budget padding in the past, and that has always been the order of the day.
And that is why, and the budget padding is coming from where? Not only from the executive.
They themselves are usually, every time the president goes to the National Assembly with a budget, the Senate is always increasing the budget because of their running costs and all of that. Shouldn't that also be checked?
Yes, that can be checked. But you see, those wise men, they are the ones that we're all relying on. So we want to believe that they are working so hard, and at the same time, they want to say, oh, Mr. President, you have given us X amount of naira. Based on what we have been doing, we don't think that will be enough. Yes, we want it to be increased. Now, if me and you, the masses, who don't like that, then we can start that agitation from our own constituency, from our senator, and say, no, we sent you there to serve, not to be saved. So you are not going there to enjoy, have all the luxuries. You're already a made person, so why not use some of your own resources? And that's why we say political office is for service, and not for you to make money.
Well, we're yet to see that in Nigeria.
Well, these are the things we need to talk about moving forward. Yes.
Well, on the debt market, we see the FMDQ Securities Exchange Limited yesterday stating that the total market value of commercial paper on its platform closed at 3.25 trillion naira on November 30, 2022. And of course, that they disclosed this in a statement announcing the admission of the quotation of the Rand Merchant Bank Nigeria Limited 550 million naira series 3 and 1.81 billion naira series 4 CPs under the 80 billion naira CP program on its platform. Help us break this down.
Yes. When you say, okay, first of all, FMDQ is a securities exchange, but it's an OTC exchange, which is over the counter. And that means it's not the regular, the NGX that we are aware of, but it's an exchange, and it's more of debt instruments. That is, it's one, the capital market, you have the equities market, you also have the debt market where companies can go and raise funds by way of issuing bonds, which is the debt. It's not an ownership structure, it is debt. That is, if you subscribe to that, that means you are kind of lending your money to those companies. And commercial paper, that's the CP, is a short-term way of raising funds by corporate organizations to meet up their working capital. So what FMDQ is telling us now is that aspect of the market is really booming in our platform. As at November, it has closed over 3-point-something trillion. Trying to encourage other corporate organizations to say, you need to look for alternative source of funding. Not only looking at equity or getting funds from the bank, you can also get debt funding from the capital market using our platform. They now went ahead to announce Rand Merchant Bank has also raised funds from that same instrument using commercial paper. They say it's a program of over 80 billion and they have raised certain amount of money. So it is a security exchange that corporate organizations should be looking into. However, I am not trying to be a public relations officer for them, but I think it's one of the exchanges that has been registered by SEC and they are good to go. I would advise corporate organizations to take advantage of that platform and raise alternative source of funding for their operations.
Looking at the banks, or let me say the companies that actually co-sponsored the FMDQ, you have a Standard Chartered Capital and Advisory Nigeria Limited, which is the lead sponsor. You have FCMB Capital Markets Limited, FSDH Capital Limited, Rand Merchant Bank, and Stanbic IBTC Capital Limited. What do you have to say about the stocks of these companies?
Yes, these are one of the advisors to the Rand Merchant Bank. You can't just come to the capital market to raise funds, whether it's by equity or by debt. You need advisors. So the FCMB capital market, these are issuing houses, financial advisor to the Rand Merchant Bank. And of course, it's not just only one advisor. You have several financial advisors that will come together and ensure that that particular issue is successful. That's why you see the array of advisors advising the Rand Merchant Bank, telling them the requirement they need to meet for them to be able to raise that amount of money from that platform.
So they're not just advising, they're also, of course, sponsoring, because they are called co-sponsors.
Yes, that's the word that is used. They are just so
it's not like there's some financial implication. It's
no. But as companies too, they also have
financial obligation.
To say, okay, we want to subscribe to. Yes, for this offer, we want to subscribe, because they know that the Rand Merchant Bank has the capacity, to pay back the conditions that has been stipulated on the commercial paper.
All right, that's a good place to leave it. Thank you so much, Asfakroha, iBrandTV senior analyst, for always sharing your thoughts with us on the show.
It's always a pleasure.
And have a fantastic Christmas celebration.
Merry Christmas.
Of course, Merry Christmas.
Of course, at work.
All right, still to come on the show, Nigeria's stocks investors have recorded 13 billion naira gain after the close of market at the floor of Nigeria Exchange Limited on Thursday. And this was the 7th consecutive trading day The stock market sustained its bullish run as capitalization rose by 13 billion naira at the end of trading yesterday. We'll be back for the details. Don't go anywhere.